ingliz tili. İngilizce ötte. İngilizce ötte. İngiliz, İngiliz tili.
Colleagues, shall we be starting? I guess we have the audience arrived and the panel is there. Thank you.
Breakfast is it's a bit delayed, so I will go to the room and I will start in 5 minutes.
So, just, yeah. Great, many thanks. So I think we have the critical conditions to start. Assalamu alaikum, colleagues, guests, friends, hanımlar ve canımlar, hoş geldiniz. I welcome you to the session on dedicated on integrated water resource management, sustainable development of agriculture, ensuring food security in Central Asia. My name is Matilda Dimovska. I represent United Nations Development Program in Uzbekistan, and I'm honored to moderate this session. I was just told that the interpretation will start in 10 minutes, so we start with the session, but let us hope that we will not have a language barrier within these 10 minutes. We are joined in this, we are given this big hall, in fact, to my reading, and we are joined with a number of participants. As we speak, more will be coming, I think, and we have 8 distinguished speakers. So let me start with my initial points, though I think it was shared in the agenda why, and I don't think that we need to elaborate why the water and integrated water management is important for Central Asia in particular. You know, well, it was in May this year in New York, the first after a long time water conference took place. And I will start with that point because it reaffirmed that the conference, the criticality of water for the sustainability of the development. At the closing remarks of the UN Secretary General, he highlighted a number of game changers to achieve the water security for all people in our planet. And he pointed to reinforcing the place of water as a human right, to start with, about the necessity to reduce the pressures of the hydrological system, as well as the necessity to develop new alternative food systems that would reduce the pressure on the water resources or an ineffective use in the food production in agriculture, the necessity or need to establish a global water information system to guide the action, but also the necessity, the need and criticality of integrating the approach to water, ecosystems and climate. So he called for a dramatic acceleration in resources and investment so that all countries are able to meet the goals, and we know well the goal, SDG goal that relates to the water. And so I wanted to, I think it was also not a coincidence that it was one of the neighboring to Uzbekistan countries, one of the Central Asian countries that was co-sponsoring that water conference, Tajikistan, because which was in fact a reflection of the many uncertainties in Central Asia when it comes to the water. This is the warming faster than the global average region. Glaciers are melting and all of that is accelerating the impacts and negative implications and bringing a huge risk to the economy and Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan imports most. Very much, Mr. Nazarov. It was a great point. And then, yeah, the key one being there is no other way, there is no choice than looking into transboundary cooperation and looking into the principles of integrated water management. Great that you mentioned the priorities, but also I note the steps for the future. The steps for the, and particularly this looking for the basin management principles as well. Thank you very much, which leads us very well to our second panelist. I'm very pleased to see Ms. Rahel Boesch with us, the Deputy Head of Mission and Head of Cooperation of Embassy of Switzerland in Uzbekistan. Switzerland is leading the water sector development partners coordination group in Uzbekistan, and also it is leading development actor, I would say, on the topic in the region. In fact, this is one of the core engagement of Switzerland, a long-standing engagement in the region. So therefore, dear Rahel, the question comes obvious. What comes to you out of the overall experience that you have from this engagement in Central Asia and in Uzbekistan particularly, and what is the key from your perspective to have integrated approach to water management and practically what that means for Uzbekistan? And of course, I have the sub-question about the regional perspective, because you are active into other countries, the rest of the countries. What are the key recommendations that you would give to Central Asian countries for enhancing regional water policy dialogue? Over to you.
Thank you so much, Honored Chair, dear Matilda, Deputy Minister Azem Nazarov. Thank you very much for this invitation, honored guests. Very happy that we can be here and share some reflections and experience Switzerland has established in close partnership with your ministry, Deputy Minister, and with the ministries in the region throughout the last 20 years. I do highly appreciate it that the integrated water resources management approach is one of the topics at this TIF forum. It's key, you said it, Matilda, to address the increasing water scarcity in an integrated manner and bringing all stakeholders on board. I do think that the TIF provides an excellent opportunity for investors, for business partners, for us development partners, for government, to learn and to interact with development and research organizations and to upscale investments and contribute to the urgently needed piloting and also development of new projects. It was mentioned in an approach of public-private partnership. Can I have the next slide? Yeah, it was said already, I like this picture very much. I will not go into the detail. You have voiced it out, Minister Nazarov. Water is at the heart of the socio-economic development and the stability of the region. I will not repeat all these dimensions, but these combined challenges that all interact with each others really put a threat to the region, to the stability, to the food security, and also to the social cohesion. Can I have the next slide? This slide was already mentioned. I keep drawing the attention on that because you rightly said please also elaborate on the regional cooperation. And it's very simple. It's a very simple illustration that the two wonderful rivers, Amu Darya, Sir Darya, the river basin, they don't know political and administrative borders. It is per se and naturally transboundary. So there is no way, no other way than to have an integrated water resources management also with this regional dimension. What is, can I have the next slide? I will skip this one because Deputy Minister has already nicely elaborated on the principles of the IWRM. So I will not go into these details, but it's just an illustration on how much all these dimensions go together. Switzerland has started 22 years ago in the Fergana Valley, which those who are from the region know well. It's including Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan, a mostly dense population area. We have started there to implement an integrated water resources management approach. This has resulted in measurable water savings, in better crops, and in higher incomes. And I may say also at community level at enhanced stability, which is always to be fragile. Based on that, the Swiss Corporation has launched 2013 in the respective countries, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, so-called natural water resources management projects. And let me take the opportunity to really thank the Ministry of Water Resources and in particular also to Deputy Minister Nazarov for this great partnership. We have really managed together to integrate this IWRM in the water concept, in the water strategy, and now also in the water code. Still, there is, of course, a lot to be done. It's a start. Can I have the next slide? I will not go into the details, but as we support these studies, such as the water footprint, the Blue Peace Index, and the cost of inaction show how important it is to work together with business and how interesting this also might be for large and small businesses alike. The cost of inaction, this is a very interesting dimension of these recently published studies. Where are we? Yes, thank you so much. I don't see it here on the screen, that's why I'm a bit lost in the slides. So you see there are the different dimensions of cost of inaction. We have the direct economic impact, but we have also political costs, we have social costs, etc. I find this study, and I mentioned it here, a very important illustration on why we need to work in an integrated manner. Can I have the next slide, please? So here you see, I will not elaborate on the figures, but yet it is really important why I would share this at this moment with you honored guests. It is that you see that the good governance, the good coordination, the integrated coordination is not just a green vision we might share or not share. It's a must, because a limited cooperation in these all interconnected challenges which I depicted at the beginning, really impact on reduced agricultural productivities and losses related, on higher energy prices, higher energy needs, on limited access to international finance, damage from disasters, loss of life, environmental stress, health issues. So the message I would like to give here, there is no other way than having an integrated approach. And Matilda, you mentioned it at the beginning, if I can have the next slide, there is encouraging responses. Not only that we have a really good and strong move ahead by the Ministry of Water Resources, there is also at the UN conference, at the UN Water Conference, there was a major joint statement of the Central Asian states re-emphasizing the commitment and firm will to cooperate on the transboundary water issues with a basin approach to ensure peace, stability and development. I think this nexus it's the first time that it's voiced out so clearly at such a high level global platform. And this links to the second, the water diplomacy, that needs to be used as a political and diplomatic format for multilateral cooperation. Also, Switzerland has been, of course, together with Germany, with the EU, with other most important bilateral development partners, but also the IFIs, World Bank, ADB, AIIB, and others have been strongly working on that. And the third point I would like to highlight is which is immediately linked to the other 2 points, is the need for stronger regional institutions that allow for mutually beneficial cooperation. And there, if I may say, we are also preparing with our German colleagues a major intervention with a regional dimension. At the national level, and I skip many, I will not elaborate on all, but let me just emphasize the water saving, which is so important, and we have to move ahead. Let me close with the last slide and just elaborate on 2 recommendations. You have mentioned it, Matilda, it's the need for the coordination across sectors. And recently the Agency for Strategic Reform has called for a strengthened coordinating approach, and I would like to emphasize here that yes, we need to talk about all dimensions of water, including drinking water, and there is a need for working on the energy, food and water nexus. With regard to the agriculture, when we talk about water saving, we do think that it's so important to have more adaptation in the crops and to emphasize also through these changes in the crops the water saving and the water efficiency. Let me close here. I hope that we come back to some of these recommendations, and I very much appreciate the discussion also with our colleagues from the business. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rahel. All 3 big items, points are well noted. Thank you for referring to the joint statement of the Central Asian countries during the water conference. And I think the last point that you've made about the need for adaptations in the crops, that recommendation leads us very well to the next question. Next panelist that we have. I am pleased now to turn to Mr. Igor Alexeyev, the Managing Director and Partner of Boston Consulting Group, the prominent American global management consultancy, one of the three globally largest, in fact. Now, we spoke also, some of the previous speakers also mentioned the impact of the climate change on the water. 80% of the impact of climate change are water related, and all countries around the world are impacted by the long-term climate change that threatens the water access, the water quality, water securities. So meaning adaptation to climate change in the water management is just necessity, as we say. Now, the question is, IWRM is also a promising tool for adaptation to climate change. Which aspects of integrated water resource management needs to be strengthened from your perspective in view of the climate change? What smart new ways can be prioritized and created to enhance implementation of this approach and ultimately serve for water security?
Доброе утро всем, коллеги.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Let me be very brief and speak Russian to convey my thoughts. We are a consulting company which is engaged globally in various issues, and the question was raised to us: what is the value of water to Uzbekistan, and what are the investments which are required to resolve the issue of water for agriculture in Uzbekistan, and how can we put priorities in this particular issue. There are several items which I have discovered for myself for the first time. For example, if you will count all the initiatives on water saving, Uzbekistan will require at least 10 billion of investments. 4 billion will be required to upgrade and rehabilitate infrastructure, including pumping station, and 6 billion should be injected as subsidies to economic agents, including farmers, to introduce water saving technologies. So the government faces the issue how to put priority among these two areas, how to allocate the resources between them. So we have to keep in mind the water resources.
For everyone. And is there any chance that
I can talk in English.
I think maybe better that we continue in English.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry.
Or
sorry.
yes, you have
Maybe another
translation?
channel.
We have translation. Yes.
Задача,
So the key issues which we face is to put priorities among investment areas into key crucial sectors in water saving. So together with the Ministry of Finance of Republic of Uzbekistan, and together with the Ministry of Water Resources, we have been developing a project embracing all the drainage channels of Republic of Uzbekistan, assessing water waste among all these channels, and the requirement for additional water supply in each particular province and region of Uzbekistan. And as per our estimates, investments in infrastructure and subsidies to farmers to introduce water saving technologies will total 10 billion of USD. So government should first of all attract, and second of all inject this money in promoting these water saving technologies. So we should be able to put the priorities, priorities properly to allocate these resources, limited resources. Therefore, the first priority would be to have additional additional water resources which we should have in each province. It means that we should have water storage reservoirs and ponds in each of the provinces in springtime, and we should also have concrete trays for our channels, water supply channels among fields, so it will help us to reduce waste of water to 30%. I think that 600 millions of USD will be sufficient to inject in having concrete trays for irrigational channels, and it will help us to get a proper return on investments, and subsidies will give even a higher return on investment. According to our estimate, 1 billion of USD by the government injected as a subsidies to the farmers will give us at least 50% payback. So if we have the infrastructure and channels, situation is quite understandable. I mean that you should first of all do proper calculations on concrete trays for water supply channels on the agricultural fields. But here, talking about subsidies, here we should be, I would say, more detailed. We should understand that water is economic resource which has its own value, it has its own cost, and of course, as we have already discussed, that the economy of a certain, I would say, farms, each of these particular farms, of course, will face the impact of introducing water saving technologies. So it will help us to have a proper impact for economic agents also. And as per our estimates, at least 2 or 3 cents for 1 cubic meter of water will help us to introduce water saving technologies, and it will not produce a critical adverse impact on performance of farms on their operation. This is also stimulus which will help our farmers. If the initial stages they will probably have a 10% drop in their profit, but in future they will be able to save at least 30% of water which is channeled to each particular farm. And of course 25% reduction will be in the volume of water wasted in the mainstream channels supplying water to agricultural regions. Therefore, of course, for us to introduce water saving technologies, considering that the ministry also can put the proper priorities, and of course within these 3 years, I guess it will be enough to have 3 or 5 years of investment by the government, and within these 2 or 3 years we can get at least 70-80% of positive impact on performance of agriculture and water resources management. We can of course have models of channels. I mean, we can develop so-called mathematical models for calculation, and I know that the Ministry of Water Resources is heavily engaged in this, but here we have to be very clear in understanding economic value of water for agriculture in Uzbekistan. We should not think in the paradigm of saving money. We should think of the paradigm of getting more profit for agricultural sector, and this will be the way for us to boost performance. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Many points. I'm so sorry that some of us did not follow you thoroughly, so we expect more questions to come later or after the session. But the point about proper prioritization and of course pointing to the economic value of the water is extremely important. Very interesting analysis and work that you have been making and are ready to do so. Thank you very much. We come back to that topic for sure. I go now to move to the next panelist, Mr. Chetan Kapoor, the partner in Synergy Consulting. a global leading firm in the financial and transactions advisory focusing on the infrastructure sector. Synergy entered recently into the Uzbekistan market. In fact, I'm not sure whether it was recent. You will tell us more. And it would be therefore useful to hear from you observations about the operating environment for public-private partnership, one aspect that Mr. Nazarov mentioned at the very beginning as one of the principles and priorities also in water management. And the observations about the PPP, but also what other ways or investment models other than PPP may work in Uzbekistan. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to extend my gratitude to His Highness, to the Minister for having Synergy Consulting on this platform. We have been present in this country for more than 3 years now, and we can safely tell you with conviction that the country has grown by leap and bounds with respect to the number of projects that have been executed in this market. Just to rewind and take us all back, it's all started with the power sector reforms a couple of years back, when the Ministry of Finance decided to tender out some projects in the renewable power space, and those projects received very good attention, participation from international and regional players, and that has led to a large number of projects being tendered into the infrastructure space now. So in essence, the projects in the power sector space, the new laws which have been established, they have been very well welcomed by the investor community. They have been very well welcomed by the financing community. And when we talk about financing community, we have a whole suite of development financial institutions, international financial institutions, commercial banks, ECAs, which are very much prevalent into Uzbekistan market right now. Now, it all started with the reforms and power sector, but now if you see, that has entrenched itself into various other infrastructure assets, starting with water, wastewater, district heating, conventional power projects, social infrastructure, roads, highways, dry ports, so on and so forth. So you will see going forward that there are large number of projects which will be tendered across all these spaces, especially into water and wastewater space, because as we all know, water is a very critical element for the sustainability. Now, coming to water sector, what's happening is that seeing the progress which most of the players have seen in the other infrastructure space, they have welcomed their participation into the country. Now, if you see international players, the likes of Veolia, SOR, some of the Middle Eastern players, they are participating very heavily in these transactions. Some of them are very large ticket transactions which are happening right now in PPP space, and the most important part of this is that they are getting a very warm welcome by the government itself in executing and implementing these projects, which is always a good sign for any country. There's one important element to note is that all these projects started with a competitive bidding basis, in which there's a tender in the market and various players are fighting among themselves to provide the best commercial and technical solution to the government. But then what the government has done here, and they maintain a very healthy balance is a tendered project takes time for execution. You have various stages in execution. It almost takes 18 to 24 months to execute a particular project. Now, the government has been trying to invite players on a bilateral basis into the country, and the government has maintained a very healthy balance between a bilateral or negotiated transaction as compared to a competitive tender transaction. This has ensured two important things: A, the speed of implementation or the speed of projects getting awarded to the private sector market, and more importantly, maintaining that the tariff or the commercial impact of those projects is in line with what you anticipate for any competitive tense projects. So, which is something which is very welcome, which has been, there are a number of MOUs which have been signed by the government in water wastewater space, and there are a lot many investors which are knocking the doors of the government right now to increase participation. So, in general, I think from an operating environment, from a business ethics environment, from a so-called visibility point of view, I think the government has done an incredible job. across various spheres, but there's a long way to go. Especially on water and wastewater space, what you see is investments being made across upstream, midstream, and downstream asset classes, which is normally it doesn't happen so easy. It takes time, but I think here in Uzbekistan, it's happening at a much faster pace, and I think that's a good sign. What is also equally important to note that this model which has been adopted by the government is also being followed up by other CIS countries as well. So if you look at Kazakhstan, if you look at Kyrgyzstan, all these countries are also trying to adopt a similar model because they've seen the wonders which has happened in the country, and they're trying to adopt a similar model going forward. So yeah, I think the path is clear, and I think we'll all see the government and the community benefiting from large investments which are coming from private sector. Now the second question which you asked is that, and obviously all these has been into the PPP space till now. The second question which you asked was what if not there's a PPP project, is there any other mode of investments which is possible? The answer is yes. So normally PPP is one of the preferred investment model, but there are other models of investments like outsourcing the projects in a management contract framework in which you divide the country or the regions into various clusters, and then each of these clusters can be given to a particular entity for being operated and managed. What it brings about is the efficiency of the private sector getting participation. The amount of investment required is low here, so you will invite more number of players to be to come and invest in those projects and take it forward. And then once you see that particular sector or cluster with respect to the water and wastewater asset classes are matured enough, they are streamlined, then the government can take over those assets, operate them by themselves going forward, or they can continue with the same model thereafter as well. So it's a healthy mix and match between those. The other important part is instead of offering all the projects on a greenfield or a brownfield basis, the government can also try for long-term operations and management contracts. Now these are investments, or these are pure-based operations contract which are done by a government entity or a private sector entity. But then what it brings about is the efficiencies or the know-how of these entities which have been operating across the globe into Uzbekistan. So that is another mode of transaction delivery or end consumer services which the government can look at. For some of the areas, some of the difficult areas, some of the difficult geographies, difficult projects, obviously, the private sector interest in those projects is very limited. But then, the government has to step in. A viability gap funding mechanism can be incorporated, as my colleague just said. Implementation framework across the geographies between various governmental organizations can be established. The specialized funds which have been established for this for these purposes, which are promoting cross-border investments into difficult or so-called economically unviable projects, and that can be another mode of investments. It's not easy. It takes time. Those entities need to have faith in the entire process, the transparency of the process, which I think has happened over the past 2-3 years, and we'll see more of them also getting invested into these markets. Now, these are the three most important elements which are there, and I think I want to thank the government for doing a fantastic job, and I think this will continue to grow going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chatan. Great review of the experience so far and ideas for what other models may be used. And the point about tailoring it and having it a localized approach, a very important one. I hope we will have a time to revert back on that topic. I go now to the next panelist, Mr. Egor Zhunaev, Vice President of ACIR, Southern Europe, which is a company that is working on a investment and technology transfer projects in Uzbekistan. So my question to you, Egor, is what are the projects that you are doing at the moment, and then what type of contribution, particularly, you are doing on integrated water management? And because I know that you are also supporting the agricultural and industrial commodities export from Uzbekistan to Europe. And when we talk about export, international trade, the experts say that the export is intensifying the water scarcity, in fact, or pressuring the water scarcity. And in that case, in that regard, what is your advice to Uzbekistan because of the issue that we have? Because the income that is coming from export usually does not go into the water management or is associated to use of the costs. Over to you.
Yeah, well, Matilda, thank you very much. And first of all, I want to say good morning to everyone. Salam alaikum y buenos días a todos mis compañeros de la Embajada de España. With respect to our schedule and time limit, I'll be short and I'll start with your permission from the second question. It's quite debatable and controversial. I mean, the connection between intensified trade and water scarcity. But, I have to thank the government of Uzbekistan and the embassy of Spain because due to our common efforts, it's been rather a good year for Spanish business in Uzbekistan. And in early March, the Intergovernmental Commission, Spain and Uzbekistan, started its work. And the business forum between Spain and Uzbekistan took place in Tashkent. So this is both economic and diplomatic success for all of us. It might be a coincidence, but I don't believe it. A majority of companies from Spain who came to Uzbekistan in March belong to the sector of water treatment. So this is rather significant. But let's get back to the question of water scarcity and trade. In fact, we do promote export of products made in Uzbekistan to Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, and Portugal. And developing of export to Europe requires higher standards. Each product or each industry has its own requirements, own certificates. To be more specific, since our session is dedicated to agriculture and water treatment, to be specific, agricultural sector demands global GAP, global GAP certificate, which, among other things, imposes certain requirements regarding quality of water and security of water sources. So that's why I think it's quite controversial. As for our projects and our proposals for Uzbekistan, currently we work as a platform which attracts Spanish companies, engineering companies, design agencies to advance the infrastructure in Uzbekistan in terms of water treatment. Of course, urban sector, which is conducted on tender basis and is being financed by international financial organizations. So our mission here is to select proper relevant partners in Spain who could be, who could act like general contractors, EPC contractors in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan also. Second direction is, of course, industrial treatment, treatment of industrial water. And nowadays we're preparing proposals for textile industry because the key challenge for us is the content of chloride for interpretations, chloride in wastewater at textile factories. And finally, getting right to the point, agriculture. Thanks to our colleagues who gave a very, I think, explicit picture, general picture on national level. I'll be more specific, B2B specific. The problem we're solving now is the wastewater at farms and livestock. Because of the high content of salt of phosphorus and nitrogen in manure, in urine, it makes it rather difficult to treat water properly. But we have a customized plan, we have a customized projects for this area. So basically 3 directions. As for proposals on the national level, we have a project to create the system of laboratories in Uzbekistan which would give certificates and make tests in Uzbekistan. The thing is that in order to export leather, textile or agricultural products, Uzbekistan's companies must apply to European agencies, which cost a lot of time and money. So we're trying to solve this problem, and our proposal to the government of Uzbekistan is to create, and well, with our assistance, to create such a system. And well, once again, I won't take much time from my colleagues. Well, it might sound a bit as advertisement, but still, I think that this forum is a very good platform for networking. So my suggestions to experts, to authorities, and to entrepreneurs is to, well, communicate and I'm open for discussions as the field of our forum today, tomorrow, and any time. So basically, that's the message I was trying to address to our respected audience, Matilda. So let me thank you and pass the floor to my colleagues.
Thank you, Igor. Yes, you referred, and thank you for responding to the second part of the question, because I think it's extremely important. The point that you've made about necessity of the global certificate for the export and the, of course, reference to the treatment of the water is extremely important. Yesterday, during this forum, we also spoke about ESGs and how that becomes important, not only for big companies, but also for SMEs, and not only for mining sector, but much more for others. And then we spoke about how Uzbekistan intends, the government is very well aware of and supporting, ready to support that setting of that system here, and many other points that you've made. Many thanks. I go now to Mr. Andras Sandorfi, the Chief Executive Officer of Marton Genetics company group, an important player in Hungarian seed production and cultivation sector. And when I introduce you, I think about innovation and new technologies, and the need for that, of course, it's increasing for the sake of food security, and in the case of Uzbekistan, that is facing a growing population even more. Hence, of this criticality of integrating the research, knowledge, and practices of doing agriculture in Uzbekistan. So what do you, the question to you, what Marton Genetics would bring to Uzbekistan foods production system in terms of improving its knowledge base and research? What do you think you can contribute and advise Uzbekistan on that? We started also with adaptation to climate change, which is so important in Uzbekistan because of the droughts and soil salinity. So what can be your contribution and advice to Uzbekistan in that area? Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome for everyone. It's really an honor to be here and gives you some words about our knowledge, how we can imagine that to support the Uzbekistan, mainly the agriculture sectors. And I hope finally, it's a couple of my words, you can understand how it's integrated, the agriculture and our jobs into the integrated water management system in Uzbekistan. So as all we know that citizen, nature and industry all need healthy rivers and lakes, groundwater and bathing waters. Those jobs focus on ensuring good quality and quantitative health, on reducing and removing pollution, and on ensuring that there is enough water to support wildlife at the same time as human needs. The agriculture sector is heavily influenced by changes in the frequency and severity of extreme weather events. The climate can affect crop management, the crop yield and quality, and the development of crop diseases and pests. Future climate information is thus essential for adaptation to the effect of climate variability, improving production quality and quantity. In the short to medium term, weather, seasonal and seasonal forecast can inform decisions on the best planting and harvest dates, the selection of crops, use of fertilizer and crop rotations. In the long term, climate prediction and projection can help with decisions on whether new crop varieties should be developed or whether new water management and irrigation infrastructure might be needed in the future. So after some general words, what we are doing now in Uzbekistan, as we are a seed breeding company, you know, the Marton Genetics belongs to the Academic of Science of Hungary, so it's no needed more explanation where we are come from. We are breeding seeds. So in Uzbekistan, last year we started testing our seed and our genetic resources because we have quite of big gene banks in the central, one of the biggest gene banks in Europe. So, and we have a collection or gene resources, and now we are looking that the best gene which could be adopted, that these extreme issues, weather issues and weather conditions in Uzbekistan. Because as a growing population in the Central Asia needs food. And nowadays, as far as I know, it's the food coming from outside mainly. However, the land, the ground could be enough, gives enough food these nations. So that would be one of our main goal to achieve that, to provide enough food based on our genetics resources, but it's not just ours. We are working together, the Research Institute of Uzbekistan, to find out the best match it. Another way, it is highly important, as we heard about the Rahel presentation, the agriculture productivity is one of the key elements to provide enough foods. And as Egor mentioned, the food have to be in the quality measurement and the kind of say the insurance certificate. All customers could believe that that food comes in the good way. And that certificate belongs in the water management. Another topic why we are could be a good model, Hungary, and compare it Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan live water comes, 80% live water comes from outside of Uzbekistan. Okay, it's a friendly, near countries, but it had to be scary if it's not in a good diplomatic and in a good regulation way, because the surrounding countries could make some decision. So that's it. One topic is a regulation way. Another topic, how Uzbekistan use that water, what they get. So nowadays, 90% of the Uzbekistan water used by agriculture. So as my colleagues from Boston Consulting said, that if we can save 20 or 30% just due to that fact to use the better genetic sources, which is use more effectively the water or more adopt for the climate place in Uzbekistan, immediately Uzbekistan gets more water to use for the other sectors or use that water to generate the ecosystem of the river basin. So these are aspects what we are doing in Uzbekistan. It's a really, really big adventures. And we have several common things between Hungary as an agriculture countries, and as I see Uzbekistan now is developing their agriculture. Now all global, we know Uzbekistan is a textile country about the cotton, but now we have to more focus on together Uzbekistan government about the food security and sovereignty. So thank you very much.
Thanks to you. Thanks to you, Adras. Very, in fact, inspiring points and what can be saved, how much can be saved with what we usually summarize as a smart but really intelligent using all the insights. It's a great point, which I'm sure that the ministry is interested about. We as UNDP, we are supporting the Ministry of Agriculture, in fact, in bringing the innovative ways of and bringing the research knowledge institutes together with the farmers and helping them innovate, not only around water management, but including. Let me now move to the Deepak Raina, Mr. Deepak Raina, the General Director of Indorama Agro, one of the largest cotton farms in Uzbekistan, established in 2018. Among other, you are introducing mechanized harvesting and modern farming practices from other parts of the world. And you are working on a sustainable business model with focus on soil preservation and efficient water use. So I ask the question, what from your experience so far you see as real barriers for water innovation faced in Uzbekistan, and what can be done to scale up water innovation in this country? Over to you, Mr. Deepak Raina.
Thank you, Matilda. Thanks a lot. Good morning to all of you. Assalamu alaikum. First of all, I feel that my company working in agro, and what Mr. Nazarov has already said, that agriculture is using 90% of the water. So I feel the biggest culprit over here, that because we are in agriculture, so we are using the most, which is true. The maximum who is consuming the most, and they have the responsibility to save so that the water can be conserved. We have been inherited. What do you say that the first question is that what are the challenges? All the infrastructure, in irrigation infrastructure in Uzbekistan has been very old. Not much investment has been done into the irrigation infrastructure in the last, I would say, 30 to 50 years. So that is the biggest challenge that what we have been going through. So when Indorama decided to do the farming over here in Uzbekistan, so first we made the water use policy that what we need to look at. So those were the three principles we just decided. That first, it's not only irrigation in Uzbekistan, we have also melioration, what they call it here, basically because it's an arid land. We have a lot of salty, high water table, and which is saline. It's not only the land has got degraded and it has become saline, it's basically it's an arid land, so there is a high water table and it's saline water. So we need to have to be able to grow something, we need to first drain the excess groundwater. So that's what the government of Uzbekistan has done a wonderful job by making the overall infrastructure. It's only the regular investment is needed in this sector. So that was first improve irrigation and melioration. Second is work. We can build our home, but we can't build our world. So we have to do together with all the stakeholders, that's the ministries, all the decans, local farmers. And the third most important thing is that use the latest technology, that how we can do the on-farm irrigation better, how we can improve it. That was the first thing what we did. Next slide, you might see that that's basically how we made the plan, water resource management plan. So various points we included that. I won't go one by one that's all in the list. But the third one is that improvements in irrigation and melioration, what we have done over the years. On an average, in the last 4 years, we have done like collector, we have been cleaning, because if you don't clean, collectors collapse. We have been doing almost 44 kilometers every year. Canals, 70 kilometers. Latoks, we have been changing 3,500 every year. Pumps and transformers, because all along these are in the fields. It's a huge amount of job, and almost 15 meter cube per second pump capacity we are adding every year. Because the old pumps are failing. Some are 30 years old, some are 40 years old. So old pump stations are failing. So we have taken the responsibility to, in our areas, change that pump stations also. And most important is that, because what I was earlier mentioning, the high water table, there is a lot of fields have the drainage underground pipings. So that cleaning is a mammoth job. So that needs to be done year on year. So some of the photos you might have been looking at, that is all the improvements what we have been trying to do in the irrigation and melioration infrastructure. So now, what comes the next responsibility is that how to measure the water. So far what has been going on is that there has not been a proper measurement of the water, what we have been using in the farms. So we decided we should be doing the measurement of water also, so that we brought in the technology, Rubicons, how we can measure the water from the canals, so that actually we know that how much water we are consuming. So when you want to conserve, first thing starts that how much you are consuming. We can't save something without knowing that how much we are using. So that we are doing. And recently we have started a project along with the Ministry of Water Resources and Ministry of Agriculture and Rubicon, which is having a further system called Farm Connect, which is right from the canals up to the farms. So automatic gate systems. It's just in the initial stage. We'll just work out how efficient this system will prove to be. And next, the most important thing is that how we improve the on-farm irrigation systems. You know that whatever farming was done here, there has not been laser leveling. So you can see the fields are not very much level. So once Indorama decided to invest in farming, we invested a huge amount of money into our equipment and resources so that we can laser level the land. Everyone knows that once the land is leveled, we easily can save up to 30% water. We can consume less water. But we did not go only for the laser leveling. We decided that what are the best systems we can have. So we shortlisted laser level fields with siphon irrigation and also the drip irrigation. Every method has different advantages and disadvantages. First, I will talk about the laser leveling. And we think that for Uzbekistan, this is the best system to have, because we don't have the water always in the canals. And drip irrigation needs water all the time during the vegetation period. And that's the biggest disadvantage for drip irrigation. If you have water available during the vegetation period, drip is very good. But if you don't have water available in the canal during the vegetation period, drip fails, your crop fails. Whereas laser level fields with the siphon irrigation, if you have only water for 10 days when you need, okay, then after 1 month again, so you can work that way. So we are relying more on our laser level fields, and we have been saving water. You can see a few photos. I don't know how the slides moved. Yeah, that's the laser leveling. You can see what we have done, and we are embarking on 10,000 hectares laser level fields with siphon irrigation every year. So we have built up the capacity so that we can do 10,000 hectares every year, and that's not a small amount. And that's in spite of the capacity is 24,000 hectares because of the weather conditions. After rain, 1 week you cannot go to the fields, but still our capacity is sufficient to do 10,000 hectares every year. This saves of water. I will just try to emphasize. First, you grow the crop also better, and also the salinity also over the years will go down. Even the groundwater, even if it's higher, it will try to drain out, not only stay in the lands. So that's why we feel this is the future for Uzbekistan, and recently we have seen that Mr. President himself has emphasized a lot on the laser leveling of the fields. Some of the subsidies have been granted of late for the equipment of laser level equipments, and because laser leveling equipments are very expensive. Even one bucket and a big tractor costs about $1 million. So for that, there needs to be some subsidies, and Mr. President has been kind enough to include that. And next, before I'm taking too much time, the drip irrigation, we are doing, but slowly. That only reason is that the silt in the water, so it chokes the land, chokes the pumps and the filters. We are going slow on the drip irrigation, but in a big way in the laser level fields. And last, how we can improve further, that was the part of the second question. Whatever the subsidies and other things are declared, if the investors are given a chance that easily that subsidy without much difficulties being handed over or to the investors, it makes easier to reinvest that amount. That's all what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was clear. I think loud and clear. It's always good to have the practitioners on board. Thank you for bringing the specific examples and pointing to the benefits of laser leveling of land. For sure. I go now to our last speaker, Aaron Russell, the representative of Global Growth Institute in Uzbekistan, a treaty-based international intergovernmental organization dedicated to supporting and promoting strong, inclusive and sustainable economic growth in developing countries and emerging economies. So Aaron, you have been, GGGI has well integrated in a very short period of time in Uzbekistan's environment, and you are having a number of interventions in this country. The question is what you get out of it, related with what you are getting out of that. What do you think are the incentives that you have seen that are preventing land users from adopting sustainable water management practices? Or which type of market-driven solutions and innovation opportunities you see for better, more efficient water use in Uzbekistan? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'll just preface this by saying I won't discuss too much about what we're actually doing in our project. It's mainly an idea session brainstorming to provide suggestions for areas for investment to enhance the outcomes. But this does draw extensively on a $5.9 million project funded by the Korean government that we're implementing in Pakistan, specifically to promote climate-smart agriculture, as well as a new project that we're implementing with the French government to assess the environmental impacts of upland watershed, tourism and infrastructure development. So there are many excellent solutions, policy solutions, that are ongoing by many development partners and by the government that I'm glad that other stakeholders have mentioned, so I don't need to. I hope that these will be complementary to those. And specifically, I would like to emphasize the disincentives that exist to enhancing the outcomes that we're seeking in integrated water resources management, and specifically through looking at how we can encourage investment in the promotion of sustainable agriculture, livestock, and forest value chains to increase the ecosystem services that contribute to water resources management, and to seek to present the importance of balancing not only the short-term economic returns when we're thinking about this, but also, and most investors will do so in the natural resources realm, the long-term outcomes in terms of the natural capital base the human capital outcomes and as well as the financial capital outcomes for the investment. So first, I would like to focus on some of the gaps with regard to increasing the supply of hydrological services from upstream sources. So this is the upland watersheds where the water is derived from. And very frequently, one of the key barriers is that the administrative, political institutions that manage those landscapes are divided. They're fragmented between different ministries, and therefore the incentives created for land users, whether they're livestock owners, forest management authorities, or agricultural producers, or even townships that are developing their infrastructure, are fragmented. Therefore, they don't support each other, and they may counteract each other. Similarly, there are significant investment opportunities that are foregone by natural synergies that can exist, that can enhance the outcomes that each stakeholder seeks to achieve, but which are foregone simply because of the lack of integration in approaches. We can have as examples the supply of hydrological services or water to reservoir managers without the investment in watershed conservation to increase that supply. So it increases the cost of reservoir dredging and dam maintenance and the need for developing new dams altogether. Similarly, the hydropower generation can be enhanced by increasing watershed management, increases the flow of water, but it also can you can also increase the amount of electricity generated by integrating floating solar panels on top of existing hydropower dams. So there are integrated solutions that can be win-win solutions, but they may not be the easiest or natural solutions if we look at the problem as a purely sectoral approach. So, I would like to discuss first on these upstream solutions. We can have integrated solutions, but also in terms of the financing, we need to have a little bit more innovative approaches. One example could be that you have, and there are examples from many countries, where you have a system called of results-based financing, such as payment for ecosystem services, whereby an upstream watershed management authority, that could be a forestry authority, it could be a farmer agricultural association or a pastoral association that governs the use of the upland area, receives payments by the downstream beneficiaries of that water resource. That could be the Reservoir Management Authority, it could be the Municipal Water Supply Authority, it could even be an irrigation, a water user association downstream, such as a private company that relies on that water supply for its production. I would also highlight, by seeking these integrated solutions, by being integrated and incorporating the natural capital, broader natural capital impacts on climate change, this broadens the scope for financing support. There's a lot of concessional financing that is specifically linked to climate impacts. And if we don't focus on the contribution that these interventions make to reduce climate change, we forego climate financing opportunities. The second area, I would focus really on the downstream water users. And I'm not making choices between who should and shouldn't have water and the water costing and pricing, strictly looking at the incentives for farmers in particular, but also other downstream water users for increasing their water use efficiency. Currently, from our research, a large portion of farmers are aware that the quality of their production is not the best that it could be, and they typically don't use advanced technologies such as laser leveling, drip irrigation, improved drainage systems. They have poor use of pesticides, they lack standards for handling, storage, and transportation, and therefore there's suboptimal quality of products that cannot be marketed at a great distance, and there's a large amount of spoilage or waste in the system. But part of this is because they haven't had access to formal training, they lack access to information sources that enable them to upskill their production systems, and they lack access to technical advisory services. They also lack reliable information of market analytics, making intelligent choices about what I should invest in because there's an evidence base of what the opportunities that I'm foregoing on. And for those many reasons, in addition to structural reasons why it is still difficult for people to establish formal lines of credit. They simply don't invest in their land to intensify production and therefore reduce the burden on the water resources. There are many solutions, and I would like to highlight first, this is the time that we can find those solutions. There are many government subsidies, as the esteemed colleagues have highlighted, many subsidies for farmers, for laser land leveling, for investing in water-saving technologies, whether it's drip irrigation or sprinkler irrigation, for investing in solar PV power generation, which can pump the water to their fields. There are many subsidies out there. There's a lot of government emphasis on promoting value addition and new niche exports from Uzbekistan's amazing fruit and vegetable products already, as well as the textile sector. There's a lot of interest in promoting more drought and saline appropriate products, such as sesame, sunflower, sorghum, for export commodities primarily. And there's a lot of liberalization. The government is really trying to encourage the private sector to invest. On a technical level, as previous speakers have mentioned, access to digital information is now possible. I would argue that most people don't make effective use of the internet, but the access in terms of the 3G and 4G networks in rural areas is now really coming to a point where farmers, if they're well educated about and sensitized in terms of digital literacy, they can make much more effective use of information resources that don't rely entirely on person-to-person transfer. So there are many solutions that there are impact investors that could be interested in supporting specific things that are not yet well tested, but increasingly because of the extensive work that UN agencies have done, FAO, GIZ, many organizations have done on the agricultural production systems and the technologies needed to support them. Many of these are tried and tested, and therefore I think they're more mature and can be considered for a more mature investment audience. Similarly, as I mentioned, many of these could also be scaled up with assistance from development partners and through climate finance. So digital platforms, providing content to farmers, creating marketplaces to enhance aggregation and access to agricultural support, smart technology and remote sensing technology to enhance production, aggregation through improved supply chain management to reduce the amount of wastage, improve the application of water and monitoring of soil moisture content and production scales. So these are all technologies that have been tested by someone, and I think this is the time, given the amount of government focus on enhancing these systems, that we can be optimistic that there will be further investment. So in conclusion, I'm quite optimistic that all the political, economic and technological ducks are in a row. The conditions are there to increasingly see investment in and transformation in the types of investment by private sectors and lenders in the types of activities that can enhance integrated water resources management. On a bottom line, I would also say in a way, we are blessed by the fact that everybody knows that water resources are limited in Uzbekistan, and they will continue to be limited, and there's no doubt about that. So any investment that doesn't assume that is a risky one. Every investment that focuses on water-saving technologies, on laser land leveling, on appropriate drainage, on seeking crops that are suitable for saline dry soils, those are much less risky, and so therefore the government can have a very clear message to investors to prioritize those. We're making a positive out of the negative. And the opportunity is also there because of the increasing mainstreaming of the importance of ESG principles. There are significant opportunities for lenders and investors to mobilize climate finance and other kinds of investment that is focused on ESG. And that's only possible if we consider integrated solutions that measure, demonstrate the impact on health, on natural capital, as well as the financial returns from investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. It was great, and I did not want to interrupt many great points, but yes, we do share the optimism. It's really a great momentum and action that is happening. The points that you've mentioned, I cannot but agree from UNDP's perspective about the necessity of coordinated approach, and particularly for such a resource that we are talking about, but also innovative or financing solutions, something that we have been arguing for a lot. You made the point about the smart technologies as well. As many of other colleagues, panelists mentioned. Many thanks for that. Now, we have finished with our panelists, and we have 1 minute only for questions and answers, which is telling about my moderation. But I still would like to extend the session for a couple of minutes, 5 to 10, please, to allow us to reflect a bit. And I see already a hand being raised there too. Great. Please introduce very brief and very short question. If targeted, please say to whom. And there is even a mic coming to your way.
Thank you so much. I'm Anna Sharavieva from EDF, Électricité de France. So I have a question to Your Honor, to the Deputy Minister. So right now EDF is developing the hydro projects in Uzbekistan, and we are in a good connection with Uzbek Hidroenergo. So what are the plans, I would say, and cooperation regarding the development of hydro projects and irrigation? So what is already done and what is planning to do in this sense? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, regarding the hydropower, we also cooperate with Uzbek Hidroenergo because they use our facilities, the reservoirs, the canals, infrastructure to generate electricity. But at the same time, what we are, I was telling to our colleagues that Minister of Water Resources biggest consumer of energy. 60% of the area is irrigated with the pump stations, and more than 1,600 pumps. Basically, we consume around 7 billion kilowatt an hour a year. It's a lot of energy. So what we are currently doing is we want to, since we are biggest consumer, we are asking the private sector to come and build, for example, solar power system in closer areas to our pump stations. Then we can buy the electricity for using in the pump station. Similar in reservoirs, we have more than 70 reservoirs, and as Mr. Aaron Russell just mentioned, we are also interested in piloting so-called floating solar farms on the top of the reservoir. So if we are open for collaboration, especially on pump projects, we have already several companies interested. Small pumps are already, we are giving as a PPP projects to local investors. For big pumps, more international companies are showing interest, and we are in the process of discussing and developing feasibility studies.
Thank you, Mr. Nazarov, for taking the question. I think there was another hand. Michael, you wanted to raise the mic, please.
Thank you, Matilda. Thank you, Mr. Minister. Dear speakers, Michael Wimmer, Head of Cooperation, German Embassy. Germany is supporting water issues in Uzbekistan quite for a while. We're spending more than 20 million in supporting Green Central Asia, which is actually working at a regional mechanism to support integrated water resource management cross-border. We also have started a new project for climate-sensitive water management together with Switzerland, and we are quite active in solutions on, let's say, on-site in Karakal, Pakistan, via loans to small and medium enterprises and other means. So we are very, very heavily involved, and we continue to do so. Just an example, more than 50 million go to small and medium-sized farmers and companies that need loans that they won't get from the banks. Having said that, I see two big white elephants in this room here. The one is, we were talking a lot of, and I was really thrilled by the expertise that was presented here, about all those technical solutions. But we talk about, somehow tackling the cake, dividing up the cake, but we don't talk about what is happening to the cake. In about 30, 40 years, all those glaciers in Tajikistan will be melted away. That is quite sure. The predictions are bleak. From 2050 on, water supply in Amu Darya will rise, and then it will continue to shrink because the water is not there anymore. So nobody talks about that. We need a clear message of agriculture to politics that there has something to be done on the upstream side, especially at the source. The water sources need to be preserved. That's the first thing. The second thing is quite more specific. What is going to happen when the Kosh-Tepa channel is opened? Most likely Turkmenistan and Kazakhstan will suffer, and we have seen no solution yet. It looks like the government in the neighboring country is quite immune against discussions about what to do and how to distribute the water. We are very much in sorrow about what is going to happen in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great questions, Mr. Nazarov. I guess this is for you to take.
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. And yes, regarding the water scarcity, water shortage, we all know. And I didn't point it out activities we're doing as a part of the strategy and concept till 2030. And all these activities are concentrated on saving the water resource. As I showed on the slide, our calculations by 2030 will be lacking 7 billion cubic meters of water, which is 25% of what we are receiving now. Therefore, all our activities, 11 priority areas in our strategy are based to make sure that we meet this scarcity, this shortage. And hugely sorry to my colleagues from Indorama Agro, this savings should come from agriculture sector. We have no other choice because 90% is used. So introducing the water saving technologies already. Colleague from Boston Consulting Group has mentioned analysis that a lot of water is we are losing while transporting, while we're delivering from the source to the field, and so which requires a lot of activities on lining the irrigation system and also modernizing the pump station and so on and so on. So we all aware of the issues of the regarding the upstream countries. I think they aware more than us, and therefore Tajikistan was part of the co-sponsor of the UN Water Conference. They knocking every door, they raising the, they hanging every microphone and speaking out loud about this issue. Of course, regarding the topics today, I think what we need to deliver is we need to raise the awareness of the public that this crisis, this challenge is there. The water will be short. But we have a solution because we can do better than what we're doing now. The only way is to conserve the amount of water, amount of water we're using, each and every one of us. And we are closely working with our neighbors. Just before, it used to be very difficult to communicate with our neighbors or agree. Now, our president is kind of demonstrating, communicating with the neighboring countries every week. So this requires us to then implement the agreed activities within this week. So we now collaborating with our neighbors day by day, at the same time developing joint action plans, discussing the joint activities with all neighboring countries to conserve the water resources. At the same time, make sure that all sectors will receive required amount of water. I hope I could answer your question.
Thank you, Mr. Nazarov, for honest feedback there, response. Rachel, you wanted to add?
Yeah, because thank you, Michael, also for your question and talking about white elephants. I would like to add one, and I'm also very much inspired by this discussion. I see the need more than ever for talking about the costing of water. I was very much interested in listening to the presentation from the colleague from the cotton industry, and it was said we introduced a water meter so as to know how much water we use, and this is we see that everywhere. So this is that the consumers even need to themselves introduce a water metering because nobody knows how much water that would be used. So we have these discussions in the sector working group, and I'm really inspired to have an additional sector working group including all dimensions on the costing of water, because this is really a white elephant in the room, the water tariffs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have a burning hand up? We are like 10 minutes above, but I have a burning question, and that is around gender. Not so. Do you? And I don't ask anyone specific. What do you think? What can be done more for women to be a bit of a more consulted, involved, and benefiting? Not only because of the fact that only 2 women sit in this panel, just to make the point. So anyone that has in the panel views on that?
Can I start as an icebreaker, because it is our topic, and thank you. I would like to emphasize that in particular you ministry and you yourself personally, Deputy Minister Nazarov, you're really a gender advocate. You have in our big national water resources management, you have supported a gender assessment, a sector assessment, and we see that when women are involved in decision making, in training, and more in management positions, then things, honestly saying, are moving faster. I have not prepared the figures, but we have already some evidence that this has really, of course, it's an intrinsic right, the inclusion of women, but also in terms of outcomes, there is a clear benefit. We have, for instance, it was mentioned by a few speakers, these digital platforms for accessing information, training, information on subsidies in the water-saving technologies. The project has created the so-called TOMCHI application, where women farmers, I mean all farmers, but women farmers are extremely active. They launch their own subgroups, so it's spreading out like an avalanche through this TOMCHI in the remote areas. Also, it's a good example on how women would connect along the issue of water scarcity and water use. And thank you also for your continued support and advocacy on this promotion of gender, of women inclusion in this sector.
Thanks. It's reassuring to hear from you, Rachel, that this is considered, and to have Mr. Nazarov championing it. Any other reflection from others on the gender aspects in water management? Yes, Mr. Nazarov.
Madam Dymowski, if you allow, we've been communicating gender issues a lot, and I would appreciate the STC that within the projects we are implementing together, there is a strong component to support the gender balance. We try to dig a little bit into the problem, and one problem is the engineering schools. The graduates of the engineering schools currently only less than 10% of our females are going into the engineering school. So the employees coming to Water Resource Ministry is coming mostly from those schools. Therefore, with changes in priorities at the same time, with introduction of new areas of digitalization, private PPP activities and all other activities, this will be more attractive to, and this will be allow our university to take, engineering to attract more women into their education system. So then we'll have more engineers coming to our ministry as well.
Thank you. I hope my team is hearing this and we'll follow up with you, because that was exactly the idea that we also had in UNDP in mind. Anyone else that would like to reflect? Or from the audience? Gender in water management. Yes, Aaron.
I think we're speaking to everybody who believes this already, but it should be clear that women are not just men wearing dresses. Any capacity building or awareness campaign targeting women should address their priorities. And we were corrected in our understanding of the priorities in Kawako, Pakistan, by the very vocal emphasis on water-based disease and access to clean water for household uses as being one of the overarching concerns, even though we had come in here planning to do a climate-smart agriculture intervention. It was very consistent that women's voices were very strong there, and so we have designed a targeted awareness-raising campaign for women focused on how to address issues of water safety. I think if we don't actively seek out those voices and then design interventions that target their priorities, then I think we're missing the boat. I agree.
Thank you very much, Aaron, for that pointing, for making these very clear points. I think the topic is so big, so it cannot be squeezed in 1 minute, and so it's great that the development community is sitting in this panel and the government is talking about it, and I'm sure that it's considered by the private sector, by the research, by the consulting companies as well. So many thanks for that. I think we are like 15 minutes into the coffee break, and it's time to close the session. I will not summarize it. There is no way to do that in a period of time. I think it was extremely insightful, great combination and great perspectives, inputs from different sides. One of the things is I found it really impressive way exchange, and how important different parts of the story come together, and that's about integration, that's about coordination that we are talking. So I guess I wanted to say the value of this type of exchange. I'm sure that either the government or the development community through the coordination mechanism will somehow continue this in this type of exchange, if I'm sure that it's already in some way. But I wanted to thank to all panelists. It was a great inputs that all of you made, and I am only humbled to be part of it. Katar Ahmad.
And also, if you allow, colleagues, we also thank our moderator and giving us good opportunity to speak out. And at the same time, we're always happy to see you, and we look forward for future collaboration, and so you can moderate many more activities in the future. Thank you.
Ben Katar.